As tensions between the US and China shape everything from global trade, technology, and security, ASEAN is working to navigate shifting power dynamics and strains on global cooperation. Here in Kuala Lumpur, where leaders have gathered for the 46th ASEAN Summit, those challenges are front and center, from economic resilience to digital cooperation and regional stability. On one hand, ASEAN relies heavily on US investment and access to Western markets. On the other, it's deeply tied to China through trade and supply chains. Hence, for Dennis Hu, a senior fellow at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, ASEAN's complicated ties with the two superpowers mean that the bloc's room for neutrality is shrinking fast. With China's economic influence expanding and US protectionism hardening, institutions like the World Trade Organization and UN, once anchors of global cooperation, are being undermined. Without stronger internal cohesion, Hu warns, ASEAN risks being shaped by outside powers instead of shaping its own future. Economist Jeffrey Sachs, a professor at Columbia University, sees the global order moving toward multipolarity. And in that world, blocs like ASEAN won't just be caught in the middle, they could be key players. Sachs argues that ASEAN shouldn't be forced to pick sides. Instead, global powers need to learn to work with it. Trisha Yeo of the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, says ASEAN must rethink its ties with Washington while avoiding leaning too heavily on Beijing. That means building stronger ties with other regions, including the EU, Africa, and Latin America, to reduce vulnerability and boost resilience. ASEAN, for its part, is trying to avoid being boxed in. Recent steps like the ASEAN Gulf Cooperation Council China Summit reflect a deliberate strategy to broaden partnerships and keep its options open. But this shift signals something deeper. ASEAN is not just watching from the sidelines, but is reaffirming its centrality and leadership. This approach has deep roots. Back in 1971, ASEAN adopted the Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality, or ZOPFAN, declaring its intent to stay free from Cold War rivalries. Half a century later, that vision feels as relevant as ever. As Sachs puts it, ZOPFAN still matters, saying that staying open without being pulled into global conflict might just be ASEAN's greatest strength. ASEAN is walking a tightrope, but it is not powerless. If it can deepen internal ties and stay the course, Hu says ASEAN could become a $4 trillion economic powerhouse by 2030, the fourth largest bloc in the world. But in a world demanding clear alignments, ASEAN's balancing act will only get harder and more important than ever. Hannah Kam, FMT.